Why do some men with fewer resources, weaker armies, or no allies still prevail against stronger rivals? Why does the rigid man fall while the cunning one ascends? Today we solve this riddle. I will show you the hidden trait that turns weakness into power, the secret that makes you untouchable. Men believe that strength is visible. They believe it is counted in soldiers, measured in gold, displayed in titles, and confirmed by the applause of the crowd. This is the great illusion of power, that it rests in what the eye can see. But the eye is easily deceived, and so are the men who worship what it beholds. Consider how often kingdoms crumble not for lack of armies, but for lack of foresight. How often does the mighty fall? Not because he was weak in appearance, but because his strength was fragile beneath the surface. Built on things that can vanish in a moment, a prince may trust in his armies. Yet soldiers fight for pay, not loyalty. Today they march at his side, tomorrow they march against him, their swords purchased by a rival who offers more. A merchant may trust in his wealth, yet gold breeds envy, and envy breeds enemies who gather like wolves in the dark. A ruler may trust in his noble blood, yet bloodlines are broken by a single dagger in the night. Do you see the problem? Ordinary strength is nothing but borrowed power. It belongs not to the man but to fortune, and fortune is a cruel mistress who gives as easily as she takes away. Think of the mighty cities of antiquity, fortified with walls so tall they seemed to scrape the heavens. Men believed those walls made them invincible. Yet all walls can be scaled, starved, or betrayed from within. Their strength became their prison, for while they trusted in stones, their enemies sharpened cunning. And when the gates fell, the illusion of strength was exposed for what it was. A hollow defense masking a deeper weakness. The same is true in the lives of men today. They believe that if they gather enough wealth, enough followers, enough recognition, they will be secure. But what is security when it depends on the shifting will of others? What is strength when it depends on possessions that can be stolen, burned, or dissolved overnight? Observe the powerful man who believes his title protects him. He struts through his halls surrounded by flatterers who sing praises to his name. But strip him of his title, and what remains? A hollow man naked without the robes that once clothed him in borrowed dignity. The illusion of strength is dangerous, for it makes a man careless. He believes he is untouchable, but he has chained himself to things outside his control. Wealth, armies, status, even friendships. All these are external, all these can betray. True danger arises not from having enemies, but from believing your shield is stronger than it truly is. I have seen rulers lean upon mercenaries, thinking that bought swords would protect their throne. Yet these mercenaries had no loyalty, no cause beyond coin. When fortune smiled, they served. When fortune shifted, they abandoned their master. A man who depends on others for strength is like a sailor who trusts the wind but never learns to steer. He moves quickly when the breeze is in his favor, but when storms come, he is lost. Strength that depends on fortune is not strength. It is slavery to chance. Do you not see this same weakness in men of today? They measure their worth in possessions, in followers, in applause. They believe themselves powerful because the crowd cheers their name, because their coffers overflow, because their face is recognized in the streets. Yet what is applause but air? What is wealth but numbers on fragile parchment? What is recognition but the temporary favor of a public that changes loyalty with the speed of gossip? These men build castles in the clouds, and then wonder why they fall when the winds change. The problem of ordinary strength is that it deceives even the man who holds it. He believes himself secure while he is vulnerable. He mistakes possessions for power, numbers for loyalty, noise for respect. He confuses what fortune gives him with what he has earned for himself. And so he becomes blind. He believes he has foundations, yet he stands on sand. When the tide rises, it sweeps him away. When rivals test his defenses, they find not iron but clay. Even worse, ordinary strength breeds arrogance. The man with wealth believes no one dares oppose him, yet it is his wealth that invites daggers in the dark. The ruler with soldiers believes he commands fear, yet it is fear that breeds rebellion. The noble with titles believes the world must bow, yet it is titles that invite conspiracies from those who desire the same crown. Strength that is visible invites envy, and envy is the seed of downfall. The higher a man rises on frail pillars, the harder he falls when they collapse. And collapse they always do, for history is a graveyard of those who mistook fortune for strength. Kings who believed their crowns immortal, generals who believed their armies eternal, merchants who believed their wealth untouchable. All of them swept away when fortune shifted her gaze. Ordinary strength is a mask, a costume worn for a season, but beneath it lies the frailty of dependence. Men chase it, worship it, kill for it, and yet it betrays them all the same. To believe in it is to walk willingly into a trap, a trap built not by enemies, but by one's own blindness. If ordinary strength is fragile, then what trait endures when fortune turns her back? What weapon cannot be broken by betrayal, cannot be stolen by thieves, cannot be buried beneath ruins? There is one hidden trait, so often overlooked, yet is the very engine of survival, the true secret of domination. It is not brute force, nor wealth, nor noble birth. It is adaptability. The ability to alter one's course as the winds of circumstance change, to bend without breaking, to shift without losing one's essence, to be like water that flows around the rocks and yet wears them down in time. Adaptability is the hidden armor of the wise, for it does not display itself in banners or armies. It does not dazzle the eye like jewels or monuments. It works silently, invisibly, shaping outcomes while others remain trapped in rigidity. The man who adapts has no fixed form, and because he has no fixed form, he cannot be trapped. When the enemy expects the lion, he becomes the fox. When rivals prepare for the fox, he becomes the lion. To master adaptability is to master disguise, to hold in your hand the power to deceive, endure, and ultimately outlast. Observe the oak tree, tall and proud, unbending before the storm. It seems strong, unshackable, eternal. Yet when the winds rage and the storm breaks upon it, the oak cracks and falls, its very strength becoming its ruin. Now consider the reed, slender and flexible, swaying with the wind, bending in every direction. The storm comes, yet the reed survives, not because it resisted, but because it yielded. In this parable lies the essence of adaptability. The strong who cannot change are destroyed by their own rigidity. The adaptable endure, and in enduring, they inherit the field left empty by those who believe themselves invincible. The adaptable man understands that appearances are tools, not truths. He knows that men see masks, not souls, and so he changes his mask as the play requires. In the council chamber, he speaks as a loyal servant. In the shadows, he thinks as a ruler. Among allies, he appears sincere. Among enemies, he appears harmless. Yet within, he holds the same calculating heart, ready to strike when advantage reveals itself. This is the genius of adaptability, the power to appear one thing while being another, to confuse those who would oppose you, to control the stage while they remain actors in a script you have already rewritten. Think of the general who marches an army in one direction, deceiving the enemy into preparing defenses there, only to strike from another path entirely. His strength is not his soldiers, but his adaptability of strategy. Think of the statesman who loses fortune, exile stripping him of wealth and influence, yet who returns stronger than before because he bends to necessity, adapts to new circumstances, and turns even failure into preparation for victory. Think of the ordinary man who loses his position, who loses the approval of others, yet who reinvents himself, shifting identity and method until he regains what he lost and more. The man who adapts transforms every misfortune into fuel, every betrayal into a new calculation, every loss into a hidden step toward triumph. To be adaptable is not to be weak, nor to be without principles. It is to understand that principles themselves must be wielded like weapons, not carried like chains. The rigid man says, "I cannot change, for this is who I am." And so he perished, respected perhaps, but forgotten in time. The adaptable man says, "I will change my face, my methods, my tactics, for this is how I endure." And in enduring, he is not only remembered but feared. Fear, after all, does not arise from those who are predictable. It arises from those whose next move cannot be foreseen, whose shape cannot be captured, whose strength cannot be measured. The hidden trait of adaptability also confuses fortune herself. Fortune favors the bold, but she despises the predictable. She tests men with sudden storms, sudden betrayals, sudden reversals. The rigid curse her name and fall into ruin. The adaptable smile at her tests, and in smiling, they bend their path to her new direction. What she denies them in one form, they take in another. What she blocks with one hand, they seize with the other. Fortune is cruel to those who resist her, but she becomes an unwitting servant to those who adapt. For every obstacle she lays, they transform into an opportunity she never intended to give. This is why adaptability is hidden. Men seek visible strength, armies, wealth, titles, because they are easy to display, easy to count, easy to parade before others. Adaptability is invisible, quiet, difficult to measure. It does not shine in gold or roar in steel. It lives in the unseen moments. The choice to retreat today in order to conquer tomorrow. The decision to smile when anger burns within. The disguise that conceals ambition until the time is ripe. Because it cannot be seen, rivals underestimate it. Because it cannot be measured, they cannot prepare for it. And because they cannot prepare, it becomes the most devastating advantage a man can wield. The fox survives where the lion dies, yet the greatest of men are those who can be both. The fox who adapts with cunning, the lion who strikes with power. To combine adaptability with strength is to rule both fortune and men, to be feared and respected, to endure and to conquer. The hidden trait is not merely survival. It is the art of dominance through transformation. To adapt is not to yield. It is to choose the form that ensures survival until the moment arrives when survival transforms into absolute victory. Most men fight the enemy they can see. They sharpen their swords, polish their shields, fortify their walls, preparing for an attack they believe is coming in a straight line. But the adaptable man does not fight in straight lines. He fights in circles, in shadows, in whispers, in movements so fluid that by the time his rival understands what has happened, the battle is already lost. This is why adaptability is not just survival, but an unfair edge. It allows you to strike where no one expects, to win wars before they begin, to turn the calculations of others into meaningless noise. While they prepare for the man they think you are, you have already become someone else. The essence of power is surprise. A rigid man cannot surprise, for he is predictable. His actions are carved in stone, his reputation announced before him, his weaknesses exposed to all who know where he will stand and how he will act. But the adaptable man is a shadow wearing 10 masks. He can be loyal in one moment, treacherous in another, humble today, ambitious tomorrow, merciful when mercy buys advantage, ruthless when ruthlessness secures victory. His strength is not in any one form, but in his ability to shift forms endlessly. And because no one knows his true shape, no one can prepare for him. This unpredictability is the unfair edge, for it keeps rivals blind while keeping you always one step ahead. Consider the battlefield, where two generals face each other. One commands a larger army, bristling with steel, confident in his superior numbers. He believes the outcome is certain, for he sees strength in the obvious, in sheer size. But the adaptable general does not meet him where he expects. He feigns weakness, retreats deliberately, and lures his enemy into the terrain of his choosing. The larger army, blinded by arrogance, falls into traps, its numbers rendered useless by confusion and terrain. The adaptable general wins, not because he was stronger, but because he was fluid, deceptive, and endlessly shifting. His rival prepared for a line but metafoxed, and by the time the mistake was realized, the victory was already sealed. In politics, the same principle rules. The rigid politician binds himself to one image, one promise, one mask, and he is chained to it even when the world changes. The adaptable politician wears many faces, presenting one to the crowd, another to allies, another to enemies, and a truer one only to himself. His rivals despise him for his slipperiness, but they cannot catch him, for he is never where they expect. They call him dishonest, but dishonesty that wins power is a virtue disguised as a sin. He adapts to every shift in the crowd, every change in fortune, every betrayal that would destroy a less flexible man. While others drown in storms, he sails with the wind, steering it to his own advantage. His adaptability gives him not just survival, but superiority, for it makes him ungovernable by circumstance. What makes adaptability unfair is that it does not reveal itself. A rival can count your wealth, measure your army, trace your alliances. But he cannot measure your ability to change. He may believe he has studied your habits, that he knows your loyalties, that he understands your nature. Yet adaptability makes this knowledge worthless, for you are never fixed, never still, never bound to one path. Every calculation he makes is built on quicksand. Every move he plans already outdated by the time he takes it. Thus, you control not only the present but the future, for his plans collapse while yours expand invisibly. Men expect power to be visible, heavy, loud. They are drawn to it like moths to fire, thinking that what is seen must also be permanent. But the greatest power lies in invisibility, in silence, in adaptability. When you disguise yourself, you create an illusion of weakness, when in truth you are gathering strength. When you yield, you create an illusion of defeat, when in truth you are choosing your battleground. When you delay, you create an illusion of hesitation, when in truth you are waiting for the precise moment to strike. And when you finally reveal yourself, it is not the enemy's strength you face, but their blindness, for they prepared for a phantom, while you attacked as the reality they could not foresee. Imagine a game of chess where your opponent believes you are playing by the same rules, watching your moves, studying your strategy. But unknown to him, you are playing a different game entirely, with rules that shift when you choose. Every piece you move is not just a piece but a mask, distracting him, confusing him, leading him to prepare for threats that never arrive. By the time he realizes the board itself has changed, the game is over. That is the unfair edge of adaptability. It allows you to rewrite the rules while others cling to the illusion that the rules never change. The rigid man fears exposure because once his weakness is known, it can be exploited again and again. The adaptable man has no such fear because he has no permanent weakness, no permanent self. What defeated him yesterday will not defeat him tomorrow, for he will not be the same man. He will learn, transform, conceal, and strike from another angle. In this endless transformation lies invincibility, not in strength that cannot be broken, but in form that cannot be caught. Now that you understand the illusion of ordinary strength and the hidden power of adaptability, the question arises, how is this trait to be wielded in the life of men? For secrets are of no value if they remain imprisoned in theory. To know adaptability and not to use it is to carry a sword and never draw it from the sheath. This trait must be applied in the arenas where men contend, in politics, in business, in war, in the struggles of daily life, for only then does it reveal its true edge. And here, you shall see that adaptability is not a mere ornament of wisdom, but the very foundation of victory in all human affairs. In politics, adaptability is the art of shifting alliances before your enemies know they are betrayed. The rigid ruler binds himself too closely to one faction, one friend, one promise, believing that loyalty is eternal. But loyalty is a chain, and chains grow heavy. The adaptable ruler knows that men are loyal only as long as it serves their interest, and so he moves before they move, betrays before they betray, abandons before they abandon. He bends his alliances like branches in the wind, never breaking, always bending, reshaping his support until he has constructed a fortress not of walls, but of shifting loyalties that confound his rivals. And when the time comes to strike, it is not one ally who stands at his side, but many, each believing they are indispensable, each unaware they are but pawns in a greater design. In business, adaptability is the difference between those who rise for a season and those who endure for generations. The rigid merchant clings to his methods, to the markets he knows, to the customers who once adored him. But time is an enemy that never sleeps, and markets change as quickly as fortunes favor. The adaptable merchant, however, watches the currents, shifts his sails, abandons yesterday's profits to secure tomorrow's fortune. He reinvents himself before necessity forces it upon him, disguising his intentions until his rivals are left gasping for air in a sea they no longer recognize. Where others cling to the old, he seizes the new. Where others resist, he transforms. And because of this, his business is not merely a trade. It becomes a weapon, one that reshapes the landscape, while his rivals cling to ruins. In war, adaptability is the essence of victory. A rigid general relies on the strength of numbers or the reputation of his soldiers. But battles are not won on numbers alone. They are won in confusion, in deception, in the capacity to force the enemy into mistakes. The adaptable general changes his tactics as quickly as the enemy forms his plans. He advances when retreat is expected, retreats when advance is assumed, feigns weakness to bait the arrogant, displays strength to deter the cautious. His enemy fights not against one army, but against a ghostly foe who cannot be grasped. And when the decisive strike comes, it is not only the enemy's body that is defeated, but his mind, broken by the endless uncertainty of facing an opponent who never reveals his true form. Yet the greatest application of adaptability lies not only in grand affairs of states, wars, and wealth, but in the smaller struggles where every man contends daily. In life, the rigid man clings to his image, to the belief that he must always be himself, even when that self leads to ruin. He reveals his anger when it should be hidden, speaks his truth when silence would serve him better, shows his hand before the game has even begun. The adaptable man wears many faces, for he knows that men judge not reality but appearance. In the company of rivals, he plays the fool. In the presence of allies, he plays the friend. In the solitude of his chamber, he plots as the master. He is not bound by the chains of consistency, for he understands that consistency is often nothing more than a prison built by pride. And so he adapts his role to the stage he occupies, never enslaved by the need to appear as one thing forever. Adaptability also grants the ability to endure loss without despair. When fortune strips away wealth, the rigid man is ruined, for he knows no other identity but the one fortune gave him. The adaptable man sheds his old skin and fashions a new one. Today he is a merchant, tomorrow a soldier, the next day a statesman. Nothing can truly be taken from him, for his essence is not in what he possesses, but in his ability to transform. In this lies an advantage beyond strength. It is the power to be reborn endlessly, to turn even defeat into a disguise for preparation, to emerge from ashes as if fire itself were an ally. Even in personal conflicts, adaptability bends the balance of power. A rigid man quarrels openly, revealing his rage, inviting counterattack. The adaptable man smiles, concealing his resentment, waiting, observing, choosing the precise moment when his enemy grows careless. His patience is not weakness, but calculation. His silence is not submission, but strategy. By changing his pace, his tone, his mask, he places his rival in a position of false security, only to strike when defense is least expected. And when he strikes, it is not merely with force, but with inevitability, as if the enemy had built the path to his own downfall without ever knowing it. Thus, adaptability, when applied in life, is not a single skill but a way of being. It allows a man to move through shifting landscapes without fear, to turn obstacles into opportunities, to wield appearances as weapons, to transform defeats into disguises. It is the hidden trait that bends fortune to his will, not because he resists her, but because he dances with her, anticipating her steps before she moves. And so in every realm, politics, business, war, and personal survival, adaptability is the unseen blade that cuts deeper than the visible sword, the weapon that cannot be seized because it is everywhere and nowhere, always shifting, always transforming, always advancing in silence. You have seen how ordinary strength is an illusion, how men place their faith in armies, in wealth and titles, only to discover that such foundations crumble when fortune shifts her gaze. You have uncovered the hidden trait that separates the enduring from the forgotten. The power of adaptability, the ability to bend when others break, to change form when others remain rigid. You have witnessed how this secret becomes an unfair edge, how it blinds rivals, confuses enemies, and rewrites the very rules of power. And you have seen how in politics, in business, in war, and in the daily struggles of life, adaptability transforms from a hidden virtue into a weapon sharper than steel. Understand this: the world does not reward those who remain fixed, for the world itself is never fixed. Fortune is not loyal, men are not constant, and power is never permanent. Those who endure are not the strongest, nor the wealthiest, nor the most beloved. They are the ones who can change their mask, alter their path, reshape their identity, and move with the shifting winds while others are left behind. To hold this trait is to hold the key that unlocks every door, to wield a weapon no enemy can defend against, to claim an advantage so subtle, so invisible, that it cannot be measured. Only feared carry this secret with you, for it is the one truth that outlasts empires and silences rivals. The man who adapts commands not only his enemies, but fortune herself.